welcome to the garden. Today I'm going to bring you along as I plant out my entire spring and summer garden. We're going to cover some basics of gardening as well as some more advanced techniques. So hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have the know-how and the confidence to start gardening today. I want to begin with the soil. I recommend starting with an inexpensive potting mix or potting soil. Anything with potting in the title is going to be ideal for seed starting, but can also be grown in all year. I plant most of my vegetables in these little seed cells. These are really ideal for saving space. I wouldn't go too much smaller than this. The width doesn't matter quite as much, but the depth is important. And these you can reuse over and over again. So we'll just fill these up with our potting soil. I store my soil dry so it doesn't get musty over winter. So I've just pre-moistened this for the benefit of our seeds. If you're sowing out something like peppers or tomatoes that like to be extra warm, you can use warm water and that'll give them a good jump start. So you'll notice I pressed down that soil lightly. That'll give us a good foundation to sprinkle on our seeds. When it comes to sowing your seeds, I simply plant the seeds about as deep as they are tall. You can go up to twice as deep. So with this pumpkin seed being about an inch long, you'd plant it about an inch under the soil, up to about 2 inches. Peas are only about 1 centimeter long, so I'd plant them about 1 to 2 centimeters deep. This works for any size seed from peppers and tomatoes, broccoli, carrots, all the way down to the really tiny seeds like these poppy seeds. Herbs and flowers have some of the smallest seeds, so these you can just give them a light dusting, or you can simply press them into some prepared soil. I'll usually dig a little row or poke a couple little holes so that I can plant out multiple seeds. That way, if one of those seeds doesn't come up, you've got a backup. So 2 or 3 seeds per cell. Space them out just a little bit. We'll just lightly cover those. I've gathered together most of the seeds I'm going to be planting this year. Now, if we were to plant these all today, they would grow at such varied rates. If we look at these radishes, they're ready to harvest after about 20 to 30 days. Eventually, those nighttime temperatures, those low temps, will get above freezing, and that's known as the last frost date. And as of right now, we're still over a month away. So if I were to plant these now, they would actually be ready to harvest before even going outside. So today we're going to be focusing on slower growing crops like carrots, broccoli, celery, and our summer crops like tomatoes, peppers, and herbs. These all take a really long time to grow, so we can get a head start by planting them indoors. That way, once that last frost date comes, these cool weather crops will already have about a month's head start. I like to plant my tomatoes and my peppers in much larger containers. They tend to outgrow these little seed cells really quickly, and peppers especially don't like to be transplanted too often. So I'm going to plant just a couple seeds per cell, probably about 3. That way we can weed out the 2 weaker ones and just choose the strongest plant. So we'll try and get the nicest looking seeds. And using our depth rule, we don't need to plant these very deep, so only about 1 centimeter under the soil. Now I'm going to label these right away, just so I don't forget. Got jalapeno and cherry tomato. You'll know it's time to transplant these when they're about twice as tall as the container they're in. We might even be able to keep them in this container until they go out in the garden. And this is the largest container that I use indoors. So if we get a late spring, I might have to up-pot these into this container. But any larger than this, and they're going to be using a lot of soil and taking up a lot of space in your indoor garden. One of my favorite tricks for sprouting seeds is to use these little spinach containers. They provide a nice base so that we can bottom water our seedlings. This way we're not disturbing the seeds or the seedlings. It also prevents splashback from coating the underside of the leaves, which could spread disease. It promotes the roots to drive down deep where that moisture is, and because the surface of the soil is dry, you're not going to have as many problems with mold and fungus, which means fewer fungus gnats, and hopefully no algae growth. But by far my favorite thing about these little spinach containers is sealing them up like a miniature greenhouse. These little miniature greenhouses make sure they get plenty of light while trapping in the heat so they germinate really quickly, and the moisture. So they're just ideal for starting seeds. Because we planted multiple seeds per container, we're going to get some that have a whole bunch. This little sprout is the best looking one of the bunch. So I'm going to gently pull out the two next to it. If these are a little too far along, you might want to just cut the stem, and then they'll die back without harming the roots of the plant that you actually want. Then I'll take a little tool and we can use it to scoop them out, just like this. So now we can grab just one of these by the leaf, and you'll notice if I'm pulling very gently, we should get the entire sprout and the root. So I'm going to dig a little hole, and then we'll try and get that root all the way down to the bottom. It can be a little tricky, and don't worry about burying that stem, that's fine. And although that's not ideal, it can be a great way to fill in an empty spot. Another great use for these containers is acclimating your plants. Generally, you don't want to take your plants directly outside. They can go into shock from the cold temperatures and the extreme sunlight. So you can set them out for about an hour a day over the course of a week. That'll get them used to those temperatures and that extreme sunlight. So that should cover just about everything you need to know to get started gardening. If you found this video helpful, let me know in the comments or with a thumbs up. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.